Here in Las Vegas, Nevada, we're covering Freedom Fest. One of the women who most protects freedom, Sabrina Schaefer, Independent Women's Forum, the head honcho, the El Jefe. Good to see you.
Right?
Yeah, good to see you, Sabrina.
Thanks for having me today. This is fun.
Absolutely. You are in charge of a group of conservative women, and a lot of people on the left will say that there's a war on women, and I'm sure you get a lot of, how could you possibly, you are part of the war on women yourself. When you hear that hashtag war on women, what do you think?
Well, look, I think it's a very sad picture of America, and unfortunately the president and many Democrats in Congress and our women's groups on the left, they perpetuate this idea. But I actually think we have a really positive story to tell about women and girls today, and that's not to negate real challenges that women and their families face, but we have different kinds of solutions that don't require more government, but that allow for market-based prescriptions in healthcare and the workplace. We want to streamline our tax system. We want to give people more choices when it comes to education and childcare, so we have a lot of solutions.
You guys also, I follow you guys on Twitter, of course, and you tweet a lot about this whole idea of the pay gap. And it seems like even now, even I saw CNN even covering it, this whole idea of the White House's pay gap, not even to mention Michelle Obama's staff pay gap. And that seemed to be a story that only you guys were covering and people on the right were covering. Now it seems to be that the mainstream media is even catching on to this whole idea of the pay gap in the White House, who's demanding that they close the pay gap all over. Talk about that concept.
Well, I'm so happy that you see the impact that we're having, because this has been one of our bread and butter issues for a decade now. You're right, the conversation is changing, and it's because we've continued to push and say that, look, discrimination exists, there are bad employers out there, there are bad people out there, but we don't have this kind of massive, overwhelming discrimination that women's groups on the left like to pretend that we have. Women's choices are different than men's, that's okay. We have to think about the choices we make from an early age. What are you going to major in college? Do you want to have a family? Are you going to take time out of the workplace? When you do that, there's a lot of ways that women have a lot of control over their lifestyle.
You also hear a lot about the fact that it's not women's issues, it's voters' issues, because women and men, you care most of the same things.
Right.
Admittedly, you control a lot of the purchasing decisions, you have a lot of different ideas and concerns, but when will it just be about voters' issues and not just about women's issues? Do you want it to be about women's issues, or do you want it to be just across the spectrum?
Well, I agree. I do want it to be about America's issues, right? But at the same time, I believe strongly in gender differences. I think men and women are equal, but we are very different. And we bring our own experiences to the table. And so I think we have to start recognizing that even though you and I both might think Obamacare is a serious problem, the message that moves you might be different than me. Maybe I'm thinking about quality of care and you're thinking about cost. That's okay, but we really need to dig down and figure out what it is that's going to move women voters at different ages and demographics, and that's something we have a lot of work to do.
It does seem that way. There's a lot of discussion about how the GOP, how conservatives, how groups like yours can attract more women. When you have the other side, Debbie Wasserman Schultz saying that all people like you are against women. How do you get women into the conservative, the Republican, the GOP, whatever, the Rhino? Doesn't matter. That fold.
Well, the first thing you have to do is start talking to them. And I think our side has had a big problem that we don't engage with women. We are so afraid of acting like we're pandering, acting like the left, that we've stopped talking to women. We've stopped saying it's okay that men and women are different and that we may respond differently to modes of contact or messages or different messengers. That's why IWF is here, to say, hey, we've got women from all over the country of different ages and different races and different backgrounds who can talk about these issues. And I think that resonates a lot with women in the mainstream women.
Take Hobby Lobby out of it. Let's take up the things that women are talking about most right now. What is the biggest issue to? I'm gonna guess you're gonna say the economy. The biggest issue to women is what?
Yes, the polling will show you the economy, job creation, and healthcare. When you actually boil that down, though, I think that women want flexibility. You actually talk to women and men. Look, that genie is out of the bottle, right? People want to have choices in their lifestyle, how many hours they work each day. They want to be able to control and own those healthcare dollars so they don't have job lock. They want to control where their kids go to school. This is all about flexibility.
We, of course, on NRA News, we talk a lot about women in shooting sports, women in guns, women in self-defense, sales training through the roof right now. But you look at the vitriol. Dana Lash has a book coming out about her being an armed woman. Armed women are in Cosmopolitan magazine. Self-defense is considered icky. What is your take and conservative women's take on the issue of self-defense and about the ability to defend yourself with a firearm if you choose?
Well, IWF is a strong supporter of the Second Amendment. I think the challenge for us is figuring out how do you talk to women about the Second Amendment for non-gun lovers. All of us were not raised with guns in the home. All of us are not necessarily comfortable. Of course there's fear around the idea of guns and children. We need to figure out, how do you talk about these issues in a way that will resonate with women but not scare them? And so that we still do have work to do. I don't think some of the hysteria on both sides is helping.
You talk about a Dana Lash, you talk about like a Katie Pavlich and Michelle Malkin, and when you talk about the war on women, when you see the stuff that they get, the tweets, the violent rape threats, death threats, I mean, it's some of the most disgusting things you could ever possibly imagine. How do you get the message across that that is wrong, and that even, first of all, I don't know how people think that, but you shouldn't be tweeting it, but how do you let people know that the war on women is if there is even that whole concept, it's going both ways if they even exist? Yeah,
no, I agree. The political vitriol on both sides has become sort of a heightened state, and I encourage people both on the right and the left to try to dial it back. Right. Let's talk about the facts. Remember that America is a country where we have debate, and that is a good thing. Unfortunately, one of the downsides of technology and social media is that you can do this anonymously, but I hope that all of us on both sides can try to say, hey, we're interested in solving these issues, not just personal attacks on people.
Last question. What are you doing personally, and what is the group doing and people like you doing to get women involved in actual politics, in elected offices, from dog catcher on up to president? I mean, what can you do and are you doing?
Right. Well, so IWF's mission isn't really to get people to run for public office, although we absolutely encourage women to do so, and we work with a lot of other groups who are great at giving candidate training and information. I talk a lot about the kind of research that needs to happen. We share that information. We're an educational organization, so we have lots of research that we're happy to share and help in any way that we can guide women. I think it's important that we have more women out there to serve as ambassadors to an uneducated public on a lot of these issues.
Sabrina Schaefer, Executive Director of the Independent Women's Forum. Thanks for your time. It's good to see you here in Vegas.
Thanks for having me.